Hello, everyone. My name is Suniti, and I'm from Michigan.
I'm Stephanie from New York.
I'm Jade, and I'm from South Texas.
I'm Simran, and I'm from DC.
We have Amani from New York.
And I'm Brianna from Maryland, and we're Team Scrubs. Our research proposal goes as follows. How does the encounter setting in-person versus social media influence counter-arguing cognition among individuals with shared worldviews? What we are looking at is the relationship between the encounter setting, whether on social media or in person, with counter-arguing cognition, which refers to the brain and opposing opinions. In our study, we'll focus on counter-arguing within an in-group, meaning people with the same general worldviews. The specific worldview we are focused on is the slogan, "All cops are bad," also known as ACAB, versus the modern rotten apple theory regarding police enforcement. The modern rotten apple theory is arguing that deviant police officers brought their undesirable traits into the policing profession, while ACAB argues the system overall is unjust.
In order to provide background for our research proposal, we read about a study that discussed the effectiveness of cognitive reappraisal for reducing resistance to belief change. It was hypothesized that a short cognitive reappraisal intervention prior to evaluating disgust-eliciting images, as well as beliefs, both political and non-political, that were contrary to those of the participant, would result in decreased belief strength. However, the more pertinent aspect of this study was its procedural methods, which included a screening process to evaluate each participant's political beliefs, as well as a scale to determine the level of confidence of the participants in their beliefs. Not only does this contribute to our research proposal because of its procedures, but also due to its evaluation of disgust. This relates to our experiment's discussion of emotion and its link to personal beliefs and their possible changes. Another similarity between our proposed experiment and this study is the assessment of brain regions that were activated by opposing beliefs and emotion, in this case, disgust. This study recognized the insula as the primarily activated region in this series of experiments, which could overall translate to our experiment results. Finally, the focus on brain regions and the level of belief change or confidence in one's belief is important to note, particularly because this study saw limited direct change in belief, meaning that people did not overwhelmingly change their beliefs to their direct oppositions. This could very well happen with our experiment too.
In another study that we looked at, 40 liberals were presented with arguments that contradicted their strongly held political and non-political views. In this study, screening questions were used, like the last study, to find and choose subjects with strong political beliefs. Participants were presented with an original statement that they believe in, then presented with 5 challenge statements, and then the original statement again, and were asked to rate the strength of their belief post-challenge. We took this into account when designing our own study. The study found increased response in the dorsal-medial prefrontal cortex and decreased activity in the orbitofrontal cortex, which subjects resisted belief change, and less bold signal in the insula and amygdala when subjects did not. The dorsal medial prefrontal cortex is related to mentalizing and theory of mind, and the orbitofrontal cortex deals with learning and behavior, while the insula has a role in empathy and social cognition. This suggests a relation between emotion, empathy, and belief, which is cited by a number of other studies as well. This and the relation of facial expression to emotion helped us develop our hypothesis because facial expression, which can affect emotion and belief, is only found in in-person interactions.
We wanted to talk about why this experiment is important. Due to COVID-19, we have seen a major shift, which has become increasingly important over the year. It is political discourse and debate online. During the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement exploded over social media. But with this came increased tension and hostility, which is why we decided to look at oppositions on social media versus in person.
This experiment could raise some social concerns in the way that information is used. It could be used to create better communication frameworks and even understand what makes information better resonate with people. It may be used even in the judiciary system, analyzing how judges and juries are presented with information and by whom presents that information and how their personal beliefs can factor into that. But conversely, the knowledge could lead to manipulation and abuse of power. It begs the question, is it our responsibility to prevent others from using the results of our experiment in the wrong way? And what could that be?
Our goal is to construct an experiment to determine the effect upon the neurological responses to counter-arguments in different encounter settings with the support of our literature. If individuals with shared worldviews are presented with opposing stimuli through social media and in person, then the results will convey what structures are more active or how active they are. A stronger change in belief strength in person because of the possible effects of the frontal lobe.
Some ethical, legal, and social issues can pertain to our proposal. For example, we are only getting the results to one side and not the other. The experiment is biased to a liberal Black Lives Matter standpoint, and the results can't be translated universally, but the experimental procedure could be applied to study other groups of people. Due to the topic we chose, which is related to police brutality, it could be emotionally triggering to different racial groups, especially people of color. To name a few examples, the burden of processing and discussing violence can cause stress. Also, highlighting the minority groups can cause them to be or feel victimized and inflict manipulation. Finally, this study could possibly find brain circuits that are directly related to belief, which could be controlled or manipulated in harmful ways. But who is to decide the constraints of harmfulness?
These are the variables in our experiment. The control is observing the brain activity of subjects when exposed to a neutral stimulus regarding the movement. Also, there are an equal number of males and females, as well as an equal number of participants per argument. The independent variable is the presented throughout the experiment between the in-person and social media aspect. Lastly, the dependent variable is the strength in original belief before and after the experiment, as well as the brain network activity.
For the method, we would start by debriefing all our subjects to narrow down to a total of 18 individuals. They will be presented with a subject rubric to end with a total of 9 people for all cops are bad and another 9 for not all cops are bad. They will be asked to rate the strength of their view and walk through the safety regulations. Each subject will follow a chart recording their data. Each person will have a subject number at the top and whether they are for or against all cops are bad. Keeping the counter argument through different encounter settings in mind, each subject will go through 2 different routes of trials. While inside the fMRI, a series of videos will be presented on the in-person counter argument or either viewing an image of an online post to present as a social media setting. Each route breaks into 4 main trials, allowing the results to be concise because a neutral video is needed to cancel out any bias in the order that the videos are presented or the post. All the trials data, the in-person and the social media, and the information gathered with the scans of the agree and the disagree will get the means calculated to get the final results. We will be randomizing the order of the videos and posts for the subjects to see. All in all, the measurement is going to be based off the bold signals that are seen, as well as the areas of the brain that are shown to be reactant. Towards the end, the subjects will self-evaluate themselves with their belief change strength and compare them to the beginning of the experiment.
For our presentation, the materials required are an fMRI machine and various paperwork, which includes a subject rubric and self-evaluation forms. Those 2 documents will be used to evaluate and record the beliefs and the strength of those beliefs of each participant. We'll also need fMRI forms and safety regulations. The safety regulations will make sure that participants are aware and comfortable with all aspects of the experiment, and also give a disclaimer that makes it clear that some of the videos may be provocative for some participants because they will show opposing viewpoints, which could make them feel out of their comfort zone, but not in harm's way.
Our study may not see any belief change at all. In this case, the focus can be on the effect of a person's original belief strength and how the brain activity varies when they are met with opposition. Research also suggests that the encounter setting, social media, will have a greater influence to a stronger belief change because virtual counter-arguing encourages candid discussion, mainly in enhancing a youth support system-like type of conversation and fostering better communication.
Finally, as we come to the end of our presentation, we'd like to leave you with information that goes beyond it. Due to the fact that our research proposal discusses highly socially relevant topics, such as Black Lives Matter and ACAB, our project could be perceived negatively or positively by different people. These topics are extremely controversial at this time, therefore inspiring various reactions from people, likely based on their political or social beliefs. Consequently, this experiment may not be well received by all. Regardless of whether or not our hypothesis is correct, we would be gathering information regarding social interaction, belief changes, their strengthening or weakening, and the brain structures that work alongside emotion as well as opposing beliefs. Once again, whether or not our hypothesis is correct, this experiment is likely to cause a stir. Additionally, our study is largely based on the self-evaluations of our participants, so an argument could be made to say that this experiment does not provide concrete evidence. Participants could lie about their beliefs or their confidence in them. They could also misinterpret their potential belief changes from before and after the videos. We would create a scale, so it would not be an exact science as well. There could be several interpretations of our scale, as well as other options based on the researcher's knowledge or wishes. These relate to our approach because it expresses the possible issues with our scale because it's fairly abstract.
This study could prove that it is necessary to change how we, on one hand, could better understand how to come to a middle ground within our in-groups and even extend some of this practice to our out-groups. Social interaction through social media may poorly demonstrate how people can and should express their beliefs, contributing to a more judgmental society in which it becomes harder to open our eyes and understand a perspective other than our own. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is the end. We also have our works cited at the very end of our presentation.
Perfect. Amazing work, guys. I'm going to bring in the panelists.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Let's begin our refereeing session with Ms. Sherry Lovelace. Sherry, don't forget to unmute your mic. There you go.
Hey guys, well done. Excellent presentation. Great slides. You had wonderful imagery, the design, layout, font, really well chosen. Everything was really well organized. It was clear. Thanks for adding the sources at the end. That's always important. Everybody had really nice pace and clarity when you were speaking, which is great. And everyone presented themselves professionally. There weren't like ripped off t-shirts or anything weird going on. So that's good. If I were going to pick you apart, the only thing I would say is I'd like to see more eye contact. And this is something we've talked to other groups about. It's tricky in the online environment. It's something that I work on too, but try to keep your eyes focused forward at your person on the other side of the virtual interaction versus to the side. If you're looking at, I mean, everybody's got notes, I'm sure, but if you're looking at your notes, try to at least look up as well so that we see you're talking to us, yeah? Everyone was well centered in their little boxes and sufficiently lit, so that's good. I think you did a great job. It's an interesting concept. I mean, interesting topic. So well done.
Thank you very much. Let's take it on over to Professor Shook. John, what do you think?
That was smooth. We earlier congratulated another group for being very articulate and what you're saying matching what is on the screenshot that we can see on your slides. You guys were on point. Digging in a little bit into your specific proposal, There were lots of specifics. Thank you. For example, it was very good to see good use of recognition of both dependent and independent variables. That was helpful. Nice bullet points on the experimental design. I appreciated what you said about trying to handle some anticipatable problems about controlling for various kinds of biases. At any rate, overall, very well done. Thank you for a great presentation.
Dr. Broadsman.
Hi guys, great job. So I may be the only judge here who has a real perspective of the Herculean effort you guys got to get all of your experimental conditions and designs and everything put together. It was a really complex topic, and you were bringing together a lot of things. And this was probably the third complete study that you guys wound up designing, and the one that you chose to present. So given the scope of how long and how much time you guys really had to integrate all this, I know what a just tremendous effort this was for you. I think one of the things that I really loved about your proposal, and I think it got a little bit lost in the presentation, is that you, I still perceive that in your design, you wanted to get at counter-arguing while controlling for social identification. And that was a really significant thing, so that it's not an in-group, out-group. Everybody's on the in-group here. It's just specific opinions that differ within the in-group. When you were working on it, I think focusing on how that would, help improve communication among people whose minds actually can be changed, I think it was a little bit lost in the final presentation, and I would have loved to have seen more of it. But other than that, your content was great. You had a really good job with your rationale for the topics. An organizational thing that I would suggest for this is you got into the implications actually before you talked about the design. And so I think in the future, it's better to sort of get to the meat, as Dr. Giordano often says, you want to get in fast, hit hard, and get out. So you want to get to what you're going to be doing quickly, and then have the implications possibly follow that. And just, the one other thing, I know that you guys wanted to measure belief change, and maybe just a little bit in the dialectic, just to talk about what's the likelihood that an experiment like this is going to change beliefs, but what does it mean for belief change? You guys, I heard that in there. And I would have loved to have heard a little bit more and a little bit more distinction there. But really, your professionalism, you guys are articulate. It was a really, really great job. Really proud of you.
Professor Coles.
Well, that presentation made me smile. That was cool. That was really, really cool. And I think it's very timely. It's right on the spot. It is a question and a matter of utmost importance. I mean, given that you're having elections, given that elections to be held are supposedly influenced by social media, and I think it boils down to the question: how stable is a belief or a certain attitude, and in a given context? Yeah, and this is exactly what you're looking at. And so the idea and the overall, the scope, the aim, that was just that was gorgeous. I mean, really, really well developed. You gave a clear presentation. That was, I could understand everything. Eye contact could be a bit more. The references, you know that we Germans are very picky when it comes to references. So we could, but apart from that, it's really, it was really a nice presentation. And let me dive into the content a bit, because I mean it boils down to political psychology, and you were talking about a study of disgust, yeah? And what I would actually suggest is that you look at into personality psychology, and we have a very well established personality model. I'm sure you're aware of. It's called the Big Five, and so it's the five personality traits known as openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And I would, my hunch would be I would pick a personality questionnaire and also look at at least some of the big five, particularly agreeableness, yeah, because I think that might actually change the way people express attitudes or beliefs in a given under a given context and under social pressure. And I think, but apart from that, I mean, it's this is right on the spot, and these studies need to be conducted. Otherwise, all Western democracies will be in deep trouble, given that the internet and the social media technology is developing so fast.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Good points. Good points. Thank you, Nigo. Ms. Kayarian.
Hi guys, amazing job, and I think you touched upon something that was kind of one of the main points of my presentation yesterday, which was, channeling science for an impactful, positive use. And I think using the social movement, especially what's going on during the pandemic and kind of the political sociosphere of what our country is right now, harnessing that energy and using science and investigation to kind of channel that towards a positive direction. I mean, that's the ultimate goal of science, really. So I really appreciate you guys understanding the value of our current moment in history right now. And I think, as a student, as a recent undergrad, I think using that, positive outlook and that positive impact has a really, really great benefit for other students. And I think if you approach science like that, using that mindset, I think you'll enrich any university or academic sphere. And I think it's going to be a really positive way to benefit other people in the long run.
Yeah, let me really bring out what Faye just mentioned. I mean, one of the most exciting parts of doing science or doing philosophy or doing sociology or doing anything is to be able to relate your interests, your focus, your passions to something that has contemporary value. I mean, very often what we tend to do is we lock onto something, and it can be rather small. I mean, the whole idea of doing doctoral work is that you funnel your entirety of your focus into something that starts out this big and then ends up very, very small, so that at the end of that, you are the world-renowned expert in something that's just not too broad. It's very deep, it's just not too broad. But you did a wonderful job. I mean, what you were really doing is you were trying to tackle the perfect storm. And in tackling the perfect storm, what you wanted to do is take a look at some of the variables that may have contributed to the perfect storm. And those are the neurocognitive variables. And what I liked is that you went from the social all the way down to the systemic and the synaptic. And in many ways, that brought together what we were doing over the course of these 2 weeks we spent together. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also offer you some constructive criticism. And my constructive criticism is actually very, very minor. You've been working together as a group for at least the past week, if not more. And over the past 2 weeks that we've been together, we have a pretty congenial and colloquial sort of sense of each other. But when you begin a presentation, what I feel is going to be very important, and I'd like you to actually go back and correct this if you could on your PowerPoint and perhaps resubmit it to Marshall. Last names. It's great that I get to know you all, and I did. I know Jade, and I know Brianna, I know Stephanie, and that's wonderful. And those are your names. And, I very like it when my students call me G, and that's great, particularly my doctoral students, because they're my junior peers. But this was a formal presentation, and I think in a formal presentation, it's very important to formally introduce yourselves, because what that does is that states your name and then grounds your claim to the work that you're doing. And so that's pretty critical. But that would be my really only sort of formal consideration of critique, because I think what that really would have done is that would have anchored you as not only individuals who are, Sophie and Brianna and Stephanie, but who you are and your role, and that's what people are going to remember. Of course, this does go out to your college counselors and college admissions counselors, so it's good to remember their name. So you might want to update, if nothing else, just your first slide. Other than that, really, really good job, and I applaud each and all of you. Nice work.
Great job, guys.